Jason Lee and Charleston White was having this discussion about how Charleston White delivers his messages. And I think it's a lot of things that we can unpack from it. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing some of this clip. I'll pause it and then I'll play the rest. Sound like a plan?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go, y'all.
You had said something somewhere where you said somebody had asked you, why you say all these wild, crazy things, and you said that's how I get these niggas' attention.
Yeah.
And it stopped me that day because I really feel like when I share my story of how I got into the game, I had to get people's attention, being very honest in a brutal way, not as brutal as you sometimes, but brutal. And that was the thing that kind of stuck with people. So that hit me in a way because I'd never seen you say that.
In 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, I wouldn't dare use the word nigga on social media publicly. Because I was a youth advocate, working, partnering, in training the state's Texas Juvenile Justice Department. So I'm raised in a household where the word nigga is not used. That's a term that it's a term that you don't use. But hip hop and culture wise, it's a term that we embrace. So even as a man, I was conflicted with what I believe culturally and what I was trying to evolve away from boy to man, right? So it became my outlet, right, to get on here and talk like an ignorant motherfucker, suck my dick, because that's the lyric of the rapper, right? And what made me realize that is because I grew up when gangster rap first came. We both 1977 babies, right?
Yeah.
So when Eazy-E in the song "We Want Easy," there's a questionnaire where they say, "Hey, Eazy, why do you wear your pants like that?" "I wear my pants like this because it's easy access, baby." "Eazy, why do you talk like this?" He says, "I talk like this to get my point across." Now think about that. Mm-hmm. It's no difference when grandmother or mom or mother and them come in and say, "Hey, when I leave here, I want you to wash the dishes. I want you to go cut the grass. I want you to do this." She say it nicely the first time, and we typically ignore that. But if she come in and say, "Get y'all mother, if I'm gonna whoop your goddamn out, boy, you jump up and go to getting it then." So I understand that form of psychology and vernacular when presenting my presentation to the world. I started out before I came to the internet public speaking. My public speaking then went to motivational speaking. So by the time I got to the internet, I had already been through community college. I was about to drop out in college as a pre-law student at Texas Western University. So I had studied theater and arts, drama, professional speech, introduction to speech. So I just brought all that to the internet. So that's why it seems like the character is so conflicting, because it's all in one. I can't come tell the truth 100% of the time. It's just like the teacher can't just really teach to our kids. They have to put some form of music or arts or fun to learning. So I just brought that to the internet, but in a villain-fine way. I wanted to be a villain.
But why did you? So you intentionally want to be a villain?
Yeah, I wanted to be a villain because this what I know from studying our culture. We all start out loving all our favorite celebrities, only to end up hating them. I watched us. I'm a Michael Jackson baby.
I'm a Michael Jackson.
But we turned on Mike in the end.
Yeah.
When all those allegations came, we started calling Mike crazy, and when he was wearing the mask. We turned on Whitney in the end when she stayed too long with Bobby, and we felt like she should have left Bobby. So we turned on all of our greats. So I said, man, I get them to hate me, and eventually they'll love me in the end because they're gonna realize who I am in real life. So I can come online and come play something that I'm not in real life, right?
All right, let's go ahead and break this down, man. I mean, to some people say Charleston White is probably dumb and he's an ignorant fool and so forth. But I think people that really listen to him and with this conversation that these two gentlemen was having, you could actually see how intelligent. And this is only one conversation. I've seen several conversations where Charleston White did make a lot of points, minus the shock value. But let me get you guys' opinion on this. Do you think when it comes to Black people that we have to do the shock value, we have to talk a certain type of way just to get their attention? And how do you guys feel about some of the other things that was said?
I know as men who may have played in a extracurricular activity, like say a sport or something, this, I guess, in your face type conversation is nothing new for us. Maybe those who had maybe not the father, maybe the uncle, you might have an uncle in your life who had that in your face type conversation. And so you kind of understood it. Now, for young ladies, it may be come off as overly aggressive or harsh or demonstrative. And so they kind of maybe have a problem with it, especially if they don't have nobody in their family that talks like that or expresses themselves like that. So it could be a problem, I guess, maybe for them. But like I said, for young men who may have played it or was in activity or especially in a sport, especially football, this is nothing new. You heard this type of conversation, this in your face, demonstrative, aggressive type conversation. It's an old saying, chew the meat up and spit out the bone. I tell my son, I said, look, I know he's loud and aggressive, and it's the first time he had to deal with a coach like that. But there's a message. Just get the message. Filter out the bullshit and get the message. What is your coach trying to get you to do? And go from there.
So
I think that's how Charleston White comes off to a lot of people.
So to answer the question that you asked, because I know my good friend Hank, he has like hearing problems, getting up in age and stuff. Yeah, sometimes I do think the shock factor is required to grasp people's attention. But to Hank's point, and it's not just about men and women, I think it's a cultural thing, because even growing up with a Caribbean family, it's hard love. Like you might get cursed out in love. You might get told, girl, you get fatty, like, yeah, breed. Like, they'll ask you, like, they tell you fat and ask you if you're pregnant to tell you that you need to lose weight. You know what I mean? Like, other folks might be offended by that and be like, oh my God, oh my God, did she really say that to you? Yeah. Like, and you got to have thick skin, but I love the fact that he brought out the fact that he's essentially reverse engineering the whole kind of thing. Like, and it was a great point he made, like, where like you end up going from, in this culture, you end up going from loving and celebrating your idols to hating them and picking them apart. So I think that was very smart. Do I think that all people require that abrasive kind of, obnoxious approach? No. But I do think it depends on your upbringing and your culture. I don't think it has anything to do with like gender or anything like that.
All right, go ahead, Jay. I know you came off the mic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Hank. You want to respond?
Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, I don't think it's culturally. I had some white friends who have uncles who are like that, and they will talk aggressive. I don't think it's just our people, Black people. I don't think that's the case. Now, when you said it's just not gender based, okay, I can understand it. Like I said, you may have an uncle to talk like that, but most times, most men don't like to talk aggressive to a woman. In general, they just don't. They don't like to talk aggressive to their daughters. They do more so the sons or your nephews or somebody. The nieces and the daughters usually don't get that aggressive tone. We try to be more sensitive.
I can't tell.
To the young. Oh, okay, right on.
But I mean, in regards to sports, I definitely agree with Hank in terms of, like, if you're Marshawn Lynch, the running back that used to play for the Seahawks, he has a football camp, and everybody specifically sends their kids to his football camp because, he comes at them kind of like a tough uncle or father figure. He'd be yelling at them kids. You know what I mean? Like, get off your ass. You know what I mean? Like, tough. So it was this one white lady that sent, her little Opie there to the, he's used to being coddled and get out there, Opie, And then all of a sudden she's on the sideline watching and she sees this, buff Black dude, get off your ass, Opie, she gets mad. So she's talking to him on the sideline And like everybody, all the mothers in the camp is explaining to her, this is why we sent our kids here. We didn't send our kids here to be like, good job, Opie, you'll get them next time. No, we specifically sent these collection of boys here because they need a different message and they need a different type of teaching. You know, we want them in this sport and they need a different type of message in a different way. So this is why we sent them here. So once she understood that, you know, she was kind of fine with it, but it was kind of shocking that he was so abrasive. But that's specifically why they sent him to Marshawn Lynch's football camp. I think, you know, when we hear the term preaching to the choir, you know, that means you're preaching to people that already understand your message, are ready to receive your message, and they're open to it. So essentially, it's a waste of a message because it's going to somebody who's already grasped that concept. So when you're going to, you know, the underprivileged neighborhoods and you're trying to convey this to these rough children who may come from broken homes, don't know where their dads are, don't know where their mothers are, etc., and they, you know, kind of grown, you can't go there with the same message. You can't even present yourself the same way you would do it to a different arena. And that's where that comes along. So I definitely understand. I mean, I think, you know, Charleston is, I mean, we're human, we're flawed, you know what I'm saying? Everybody has their issues. I think he has the right idea, most definitely. And I think it's hilarious because you'll hear people saying, I can't believe he said that, or why did he say this? But then the music that you're listening to is saying this all the time, but being that it's presented in an artistic, you know, presentation, you're like, oh, that's my shit. All he's doing is saying the same thing that we're listening to. You know what I mean? So it's funny to see how people will receive it in this palatable one way, but then when somebody looks like them, you know, got a fitted cap, got a chain on, you know, talking crazy, they'll be offended by it.
All right. No, shout out to Lady T for sending this question, but she says, is an abrasive in your face approach necessary to get people's attention?
I mean, you have to
Depends
know
on the
your
environment.
bingo. You have to know your audience. If your audience is a bunch of opies with freckle face and they smiling and they have, you know, you might have to be a little softer side. But if you see some do-rags in the crowd and some gold teeth, you know what I'm saying, you might have to adjust your message because and some palm tree, you know, haircuts, you might have to have a different approach, yo, because they're not gonna be trying to hear what you're trying to say.
All right. Go ahead, Balance. What are your thoughts about it, man?
So Charleston, can you hear me good?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Charleston White was one of the only shorts that I posted on TikTok, no, on YouTube, that got 1 million views. 1 million views. My only video that got 1 million views. So my point of saying that is Charleston White, he triggers people negative, positively, and he has that effect on people where they're going to stop and listen. They're going to watch it regardless. So the fact that it's true is sad, but it's very true. It's completely true. I have not had a viral video like that since Charleston White. And my point of saying that is a lot of the culture, we come from broken homes, broken families. We didn't have the father. The father is the discipline. So when you don't have that, it's like now you're attracted to more toxic things like that. And you want to stop and you want to listen to it. It's a different way to listen to people and to listen to things they have to say, because it's like, if I'm saying it, you're not going to listen to it. If I'm saying it in this tone, in this voice, and I'm saying it in a sweet manner, you're not listening. But I put Charleston White, we could have the same exact message, and he gets 1 million views. It's just a fact. It's a fact of the matter. And it's sad that that's the truth. But the majority of our culture, that's how they're taking in knowledge right now. That's how they're taking in information. And I am not in agreement with everything he says at all. There's a lot of things he says, and I'm like, I cannot believe he said that. But certain things he says, maybe 40% of things, I agree with him. And it's unfortunate that we have to say it in a toxic way for people to listen, but you got to meet people where they are. So it is what it is.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Luis. Jay, you wanted to say something real quick?
No, I was just saying, and a lot of the people that he once offended, like in the beginning, when he first came out abrasive, a lot of the people that he offended, they now have good relationships. They now work together. They now are inviting them to their podcast. They're doing business. So it hurts at first, when you're holding up a mirror to somebody, and that's what he's presenting. He, essentially, I am a mirror of you, of what this culture has, because he said, I grew up on this culture, the misogyny, the violence, the gang. I grew up. So what you're seeing is a reflection of what the culture is raising, essentially.
All right, go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reality is that people don't listen to people when they're speaking if they're outside the cultural vernacular. It's very hard for someone who might share the same, you know, skin as you, might have the same features as you, but if you grew up on a completely different, side of the track, they can't relate to you closely because you don't experience or have gone through the things that they have. So they feel like you're not really relatable. You know what I'm saying? And they feel like it's more talking down. Even if I have the best intention in the world to give you the best free game and give you all the insight to set you up for life, because we didn't have the same upbringing or similarities, it's hard for those people sometimes to trust or grasp onto what people are saying, even though they're giving them the free information. You know what I'm saying? And that's a crossroad that a lot of people kind of tend to come to. I like Charleston White. I mean, he's very blunt, he's very to the point. The reason Charleston White offends people so easily is because we become such a soft society. Like, let's be very honest, we become such a soft society where even giving people constructive criticism to set them up for life, to set them up for the right path, to set them up to win. People take so offensive to that. They internalize that and personalize that. You know, to the example that Hink and Jay were given earlier. When you have moms or parents who show up to games and you see that the coach is a little bit tough on their young boys. If you're not tough on those young boys and you coddle them, you're essentially producing the same piece of cloth of men that a lot of these women are out here complaining about. So why you just don't allow yourself to trust the process? Trust the process that they're going to grasp it, trust the process that they're going to evolve from it. So we therefore have much better wholesome men, and we have a much better wholesome community of individuals. Far too often, a lot of people are coddled, and I think that's the nucleus in which he attacks. And he makes a lot of people uncomfortable because those people, unfortunately, haven't sat with themselves long enough and say to themselves, what is it about what he is saying makes me so uncomfortable that I have yet undressed? That right there is something that a lot of people unfortunately have not done. People are quick to offend. I love his villain comment. I do want to land to say this. I love his villain comment when he says he wants to become the villain because the villain is such. We talk about the villain all the time. Think about all the villains we talk about. We talk about the homosexuals, the broke dudes, you know what I'm saying, the Pookies, the Ray Rays. All of those are villains. You know what I'm saying? But we never talk about the hero. We never talk about the mantelpiece because we already intrinsically have come to the conclusion, well, they're supposed to be that. They should be that. They're already that, not realizing that the backstory for that person to get what he became is much more in depth versus the people who are just simply becoming the villain. And sort of a lot of people gravitate towards the villain. A lot of people tend to gravitate towards more of the villain because there's something they try to feed whatever negative impulses into that character, and then in time they take certain characteristic traits from that. There was a famous line from Batman. He's like, if you stay along you stick around so long being the hero that you end up becoming the villain. This is a classic example. When he first started, he was the hero. He was out there going to, community meetings. He was out there on the state house trying to help pass bills and policies and stuff like that. He was a very advocate person for the community, for his community, and just people around. And people were not listening. People were not taking him serious. And he was out there with the shirts, with the signs, and pushing and protesting and doing all that. Nobody listened. He transformed himself into the villain in which he described, and this is the result in which you got. Now people are stopping to listen. Now people are, shell shocked of what he's saying. But he's been saying the same thing. The only difference is that his message has been amplified in such a way where now it makes people joke at the moment that he opens his mouth. So that's all I got.
All right, go ahead, Miss Ruth.
Yeah, so I remember when my girls were young and I used to get a little jealous when I used to say, hey, it's time to clean up and all of that. And I gotta get louder and gotta get louder. Come on, guys, you gotta clean up. Da, 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 da. As soon as their dad walk in the house, clean up is done. If a man says something, he don't have to raise his voice or anything. It's just the fact that it's low. I don't know what it is. I try to bring my tone lower. It didn't work, but it's the fact that they're a man and they come with the muscles, I guess. I don't know. It comes with more power, or they're easily persuaded when their father speaks. And that's in general. So as far as you trying to be loud and toxic, it doesn't always work. But in certain situations, you got to know how to move. If you have somebody that's playing the stepdad role, you can't tell them don't talk to the kid, don't discipline the kid. You got to do like you guys talked about the coach. This is the first time I'm hearing it in that way, but it makes sense. So allow him to discipline the kids, and y'all could talk about it, before or afterwards, but y'all have to allow him to do what he needs to do. If these moms could see that they need that, then allow the kid to get all types of just because you're the mom, it doesn't mean that other people in the community cannot help you raise your child, right? It takes a village. So let him play his role. I know that when you put out good content, it's not even, it doesn't automatically get pushed to the top. It could be life-changing. It could be great. But if you don't have this toxic twist, or if you're not saying things that are controversial, it kind of gets pushed down in the algorithm. So we know that happens. So it's just kind of like, when you're quiet and mousy, nobody want to hear you. But when you get loud, all of a sudden you got people attention. We see it happen all the time. It's happened to me. So we know that's how we are in the culture. But it's so interesting how you can go to a finance channel. They don't got to scream or yell or whatever, but people hear what they have to say. So people need to know that they need help in the area first. Once they recognize it and the person can give them the answers that they want with time, they will listen. But you got to keep going if you have a positive message. I don't think people should become toxic just to get their point across. I think you're just going to need more time, and you got to go through the challenges and the battles in order to do that. Because I guess it was a guy playing the violin in the subway, and people wouldn't even give him like $1 or whatever. They was just throwing change and they were just ignoring him. But as soon as he played the same exact thing in a concert hall, now everybody was on their feet. So environment plays a part. Having an audience plays a part. Because some of the times we say stuff that's more important than what celebrities have to say. But because we don't have the name behind it, they're never going to listen. But once you involved in some kind of scandal, or your name gets big, or you go viral, then all of a sudden everybody want to hear what you have to say. So that's why it's making people want to go viral. Then they have to act toxic to go viral. And it's like a downward spiral. So we just have to be careful not to fall into it. If you don't want to be known for something, and Charleston White is saying, like, I don't care what I'm known for. I could be the bad guy. A lot of people don't want to be the bad guy, while they'll never get hurt. So you have to make you have to decide what your morals and principles and ethics are, and move accordingly.
Let me ask you a question, Ruth. You alluded to something that I really liked and it caught my attention. Do you feel that, or believe that you have to be a brand in order to be listened to nowadays?
Sometimes it seems like it. Mm-hmm.
Because We live in a world where everybody has, or almost everybody has, a smartphone, access to the internet, a laptop, some form of technology, right? And sort of everybody can blog, write, message, etc. So everybody, you know, in a holistic thinking way, is everybody has a voice or a platform. But like really, really being listened to, I think you almost have to be a brand yourself.
Yeah, I think
Because
that it starts with the timing though. Like, let's say you started YouTube when, like, in 2008, those people, because I don't want to say if you have to be a brand, that's the only way. But now technology is making it so that if you stay on in the game for a while, you will get your following. It will take time. It can happen. But if you came in at 2008, all those people have millions of subs. If they, the people that were on YouTube, but just coming in now, you want to come in at 2023, 2024, you got to do your own 10-year journey or whatever it is that you have to do to get your following. And it'll be more genuine if you want a genuine following. But it's possible because you can see it on YouTube, but that doesn't mean that you still need a brand. I believe you still need a brand somewhat.
Okay. I was gonna probably ask a similar question to that. I think Luis did it. Go ahead, Lady T. Want to say something?
I was gonna ask if y'all think we based on like the fact that we're kind of used to, well, some of us are used to that more abrasive approach or the tough love approach, that we've normalized some dysfunction in our community or in our tribes or in our families. And if you think that like perhaps the breakdown and the unlearning and the reversal of like all the programming is what's causing for certain folks to be like, oh, y'all are just too damn sensitive. You know what I mean? Like, because now we kind of know how to communicate better. Minus like all the trauma and the tension and the stress that maybe we or our ancestors and our elders used to have to communicate through. I know that was like a lot, but essentially, do y'all think we've normalized dysfunction in this form of communication?
I'll say something because nobody else is saying see, I think what you're saying is interesting because we're already dysfunctional. So it's like we're already at that starting point. So it's not like becoming, we've already started there, if that makes sense. So what you're saying is kind of backwards to me. Like, I think we need to correct the dysfunction that already exists. And because we're already on an extreme side, I think Charleston White is saying, well, I'm going to go to another extreme side to get their attention. Like, we're already living it. So how do you mean?
I think you may have misunderstood what I was saying. I wasn't saying we're becoming dysfunctional. I was saying we are essentially normalized, or we've already normalized dysfunction, meaning obviously that we've been dysfunctional. So we've normalized it, like by making it seem as though like this abrasive style of communicating to get someone's attention, or, you know, this tough love is supposed to be our norm. Like based on the fact that that's what it's been. And now that we're trying to like break through all those things, people are saying that like, okay, y'all are just soft, y'all are sensitive, because that's kind of how we've been. You know what I mean? But the younger kids are not having it. Like I grew up in the age of do as I say, not as I do. I can't do that now. My daughter look at me like, but mom, you know what I mean? They'll call you on it. And they have teachers at school telling them that, you know, they have the right to be whatever they want to be, whether their parents say that or whether it's a yes or a no from their families. You know what I mean? Whether or not their families approve. So like the point, I wasn't saying that we're becoming more dysfunctional. I was saying we've normalized it. And like now, you know, people are pretty much using that, weaponizing that to kind of grab our attention.
is it that we normalized it, T, Or is it that they had presented the dysfunction and somehow we figured out a way to kind of brand it as being okay, or there are these sort of small remedies to being like it's okay to, you know, go against the grain. It's okay to, you know, stand out or challenge, you know, the status quo, right? I think it's a little bit more of that. I don't
I actually,
dysfunction breeds content.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hold
Go
on,
ahead.
hold on. Before you guys continue, can we, just for the sake of the conversation, for people that may be watching, can we just elaborate on what the function is or how you guys view the dysfunction?
Well, this is what I was gonna say. The dysfunction, like growing up, like where I grew up, many Black people have had my experience of growing up in the hood, right? We've normalized hood behavior in that environment. We see it in the videos, hear it in the music, all of those things. We've normalized that to the point that it has become cool, right? But if you grew up in the hood, most people who are in the hood don't want to live in that environment. They're trying to get out of it. But because we try to make it, because it has become, I think initially it became a like in our music, just kind of an expression of what was going on in real life, right? Because most people didn't know what was going on in the hood outside of those who were living in the hood. So I think it started off as just a reflection of me expressing what my life is like or what has been going on. But because it has picked up and I guess turned into something totally different, it has become cool. It has become normal. And I think that would be an example of normalizing dysfunction because not being afraid of hearing gunshots, you know what I'm saying? Like you become desensitized to a lot of stuff that is not okay. But because you've been in an environment and where that's the norm, then you don't really react the way if you lived outside of that experience that most people would. So I kind of agree with what Lady Mogulette was saying about certain things we've normalized. We've been in a dysfunction for so long that it has become a normal way of living. And now that people are saying, you know what, we need to do things differently, those who are stuck in that dysfunction is going to look at it like totally different. Prime example, older people with spanking the kids. I remember we just got spanked for everything. Just you're drop milk, you're getting a spanking. You know what I'm saying? Where everything didn't really call for a spanking. But now, like when you have your own kids, you realize you have more tools in the tool chest to use to help correct certain behaviors without using spanking. But then the old people are kind of still stuck in that and are like, why you ain't beat that boy's butt? You know what I mean? So in that regard, we've normalized spanking, but then now you have adjust, you know, have grown and have learned other ways to do things. And now the older people looking at the younger people and say, y'all don't know how to raise your kids. So that's also another example. I think kind of Lady Mogulette was kind of talking about in terms of normalizing dysfunction, but then you're trying to improve, and now people are saying that you've gotten soft.
And
Oh,
another thing you had to go ahead, you can provide.
oh, thank you. No, I wasn't going to rebut, actually. I was going to make another point and answer JR's question. So you could go ahead if you want.
Oh, I was just gonna say, a lot of times that we so used to the dysfunction that we stereotype each other, and we don't allow for people to have their own range. You know, some people may feel a little hood some days, and sometimes they may be more classy or elegant, or maybe they want to be reserved, and then another day they may feel real out. Like, let people be who they are, the full range. You can't just say, oh, this is how I seen you for. Have you ever been doing a job and then your boss walks in and they just see you for a snippet of the day and they just assume you wasn't doing nothing all day, but that was the 1 second you had to sit down and take a breather because you've been working your butt off. You see somebody in a snippet and then you assume this is how they are. but you need to allow people, we need to give each other grace to be who we truly are. And sometimes it's different. There's different things, and you have to get to know people instead of saying, oh, I know her, she's this or he's that, putting people in a box. And so we can change it and we can create our own new normal, you know, instead of like, sometimes we hear people and we think because they're speaking the full sentences, like, oh my gosh, you sound like a Valley girl, or you have this accent, or you sound white, or you sound this and that. I'm like, listen, can we normalize that if we speak in full sentences and we pronounce all of our words, that's still being Black, instead of, oh, you sound white, you know, like that's giving white people too much credit as far as they're the only people that can sound intelligent. So that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, so I did want to. So for me, and this might not be a popular opinion, but I don't think being hood is dysfunctional. I think it's this. I think the things that are dysfunctional, to answer your question, JR, are things that are destructive, things that don't bear good fruit. Things like, um, you know, communicating ineffectively. Things like this hyper individualistic culture that we have now, based on like fair and like based on like, yeah, essentially fair. You know what I mean? The lack of community, the things that don't that and it's crazy because we live in a hyper individualistic culture where people don't consider the fact that their actions create waves and affect other people, and don't consider the fact that we're all interconnected in some way, shape, or form, and that your behaviors do in fact have an effect on and impact what's happening around you. And that's one of the biggest and most dysfunctional things that I think we do. I think like things like I don't know what I could say because we're on YouTube, but how this country essentially capitalizes on things that we need as a people, that could be real dysfunctional. And we so used to it that we go to other countries and don't realize that, you know, you hear spending $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $800 sometimes for medication that you could go there and get for half the price over the counter. You know what I mean? Like there's so many other things that I could, you know, mention before my brain right now. I'm still a little hungover from yesterday. But yeah, those are my examples.
I keep telling y'all, this is not a country. This is a business. This has never been a country. This is a business.
And I don't think the hood is, you know, dysfunctional. I think some of the perspectives and the behaviors that the hood has created is dysfunctional. I think celebrating somebody that came out of jail and throwing a party and, you know, oh, you got out of jail, versus somebody that went off to college or graduated college. A person that got out of jail would get a bigger celebration than somebody who graduated from college. Somebody who is impregnating the whole community will get celebrated, will be looked at as a damn carnival ride, versus somebody who's doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Not impregnating everybody that they've dated or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I know dudes who got babies all around the hood. Yo, he's like 15 people that look just like him. And he's looked at, that's a carnival ride. He got 15 kids. Like, chicks is like, something must be popping about him. You know, he got all them girls. That's how you know, the crazy mindset. Somebody having a job, you know, is you got 9 to 5, you know, what's wrong? Nah, dog, I'm hustling. You know, the people that are revered in the hood is where the dysfunction comes in. You know what I mean? Because it's not enough people that are doing it the right way. And they're not, the people that are doing it the right way aren't praised enough and revered enough for other people behind them to be like, I'm gonna do it that way. There's no balance. You know what I mean? It's like you have young kids who are scared to show, like, because I worked in a children's home for a period of time, and I used to watch all these young gifted children hide their gifts because the gang didn't look at that. You know, they would be less than if a dude you know how to draw, or you know how to write poetry, or you was good at math. You know, what's the answer to that? He not gonna answer the question because, you know, the do-rags in the back of the class is gonna, oh, you smarty art, nigga. You know, like, that's crazy that you trying to hide your gifts because you feel like it'll make you less than to the hood. That is terrible.
So
You know,
I agree with that. That's what I was getting at when I said I don't think the hood is dysfunctional. The mindset, like what's prioritized, what's valued, like the interests, you know what I mean, of the people not being something that's gonna like bring them forward. Those are the dysfunctional things. Because I grew up project adjacent, but like I think that's probably why I can understand that folks are a product of their environment. But even being in the quote unquote hood environment doesn't necessarily mean that you are operating in dysfunction. You're operating within your environment. You might be in survival mode. There are some things that you may do that that other folks won't have to, you know what I mean? Because their environment doesn't require that. But that's exactly what I was saying, like the mindset, the things that are prioritized and valued over things that can grow you as an individual, grow your family. You know what I mean? Those are the things that are dysfunctional in the hood.
last
I'm
last
sorry.
comment,
Oh,
real
go
quick,
ahead.
mistake. Last comment,
Go
and just imagine as a young kid, or you know, let's just say 8 to 12 years old, and you see one person get out of jail and they giving them clothes and money, and then you see another person graduate high school or graduate college, and they're just like, oh, thumbs up. As a young kid, what do you think? Oh, hell no, dog. I'm about to start slinging crack. I want that. I want that parade. I want that block party. You know what I mean? They having block parties for niggas.
I want that validation.
That
And
bodies.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I that's where my confusion is, because I do believe the hood breeds dysfunction. Your environment, because just because you're in the hood, you can be in a $1 million mansion and still have dysfunction in a $1 million mansion, because is the environment itself. So when y'all are saying that you don't think that the hood is dysfunction, it is. You know, it is very dysfunction because the environment within itself is dysfunction. Now you do have individuals that are in the hood that like I've always said that in where we grew up, the environment was hood, but inside, I'll say that I'm from the hood, but I'm not of the hood. And the difference was because I was in the environment where my actual living location was in the hood, but what went on inside my house was a total opposite of what was going on outside of my house. So I had a very different environment. So I had to learn how to, navigate two different environments, because what we were taught in our house, if I was to live like that outside of my house, I wouldn't be able to survive, right? So that environment created a level of dysfunction in me in order to survive in that environment. So when we say the hood is not dysfunction, it is. It breeds dysfunction because it reinforces those negative behaviors that y'all are talking about. Those are the things that get reinforced. And so it continually happens, which makes it difficult to make any change within that environment when majority of the people are the same mindset of survival mode, picking on each other, or, well, I'm trying to toughen them up, like, making your kids go back out and fight each other so they can learn to be harder. You know what I'm saying? Not take any mess. Like those kind of things, although in that environment, it seems good. Going back to Lady Margaret's point, it seems good because those are the things that are reinforced for survival in that environment. And so in that environment, we've normalized the dysfunction because it works in that environment. But when you take somebody outside of that environment, those same skills are not necessarily going to work in a different environment where you don't need to utilize that. It's only necessary in that specific environment, which again, it breeds dysfunction. And, and that's not to take anything away from individuals that are in that environment that are trying to do better, right? Or trying or not really trying to engage in that. But living in an environment where you need those skills, it actually begins to teach you how to become a little dysfunctional as well.
Go ahead, Balance. I know you came off the mic first, and then Ruth.
I don't want to like argue with anybody on here, but for example, I think single parent homes are very dysfunctional. And I think it's extremely dysfunctional, especially for the children being raised in that environment. Like, you don't have the balance of a father and a mother. Something's going to be lacking. Whether you don't have the mother or the father, something's lacking. So, and I mean, in the home with the same rules, and you're learning in that environment every day. And that's why, because so much of the culture didn't have that, that's why so many people are dysfunctional. And then they're trying to go about relationships in a dysfunctional way. And the way they're raising their kids is dysfunctional because it's lacking something. And that's why now they're listening to Charleston White. Like, why? I don't want my kids listening to Charleston White. Like, I don't want it to be like that's the last resort. Oh, let me put on some Charleston White. Like, that to me is failure. I don't want that for my family. So I'm just saying, certain things, if you have dysfunction, now you're trying to figure it out with a Charleston White video. And it's sad that we're resorting to this, but it's because there's so much dysfunction. That's all. I just wanted to add that in there.
All right, go ahead, Ruth.
I think that once you start listing some hood behaviors, I was like, wait a minute. That's where we got that from. A lot of kids in the suburbs trying to be like kids in the hood, right? So if we could list a lot of like dysfunctional behaviors that we just think is normal, I think that would help to say, you know what, maybe I'll stop doing that because that's not normal. Can y'all go ahead and
but hold on, can we highlight specifically what those kids in the suburban neighborhoods want to become or emulate of kids who live in the hood? What character trait are they lack that they wish that they had?
They want to be tough.
The edge, the style, that stuff. So and to balance this point, yeah, single parent households are dysfunctional because they're lacking, but there are also some very dysfunctional two parent households. So it's a matter of, like I said earlier, to answer JR's question, what's dysfunctional is operating in a way that doesn't bear good fruit for what you're trying to accomplish. That's the bottom line. It doesn't bear good fruit. It doesn't elevate or give you the desired outcome. And what I said earlier was not that I said the hood. I think I said it was to what Miss Taken said. Of course, there's dysfunctional aspects of the hood. We know that. But I'm saying, like, being in a hood, or that's something out of somebody's control. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a project in the world somewhere where they've made do and they're working together. And unfortunately, what we see most is, the hood, like what we're speaking about, like the bad behaviors of people that are where the dudes, that the OGs feel like they gotta haze the young guys coming up to toughen their skin because maybe ain't no father in their household. So now the little boys that have daddy issues are going out seeking validation from older guys in the community, and the little girls that have daddy issues because maybe there's no father in the household is going out seeking unnecessary attention from guys. And then the little girls that have mommy issues have a hard time taking guidance from women that are elder women. And the little boys that have mommy issues are out here angry and pissed and talking crap about women and being disrespectful to women. So we understand that there are dysfunctional aspects of being hood, but I wasn't saying that it's not all in its entirety dysfunctional. I was just saying that I think sometimes we, even as a people, have been programmed to believe that anything that's too Black is fully dysfunctional. So that's all I was pointing out. it was, I was just trying to make sure that we weren't having like an anti-Black discussion around folks who are placed in situations that are out of their control.
Yeah, but back to my question, can y'all give me some hood examples? Like not hood examples,
I
but
mean, I think,
dysfunctional.
yeah, I think that may be, it's not going to be difficult, but I think it's just a long list. I think we'll probably be all day kind of combing through because it's like two different worlds. So, like my son, he didn't grow up in the hood, even though he wants to be hood, and it's probably because of the music and the media that's being out there. Like I know he's not that guy, even though the people. And as he uh, start to obtain some of the habits, yeah, but he's still not that guy. Like I grew up in the hood, and the goal was for him not to have the same experience. And just like Lady T said, I didn't have a choice. You know, I mean, it was what it was. The balance for me came from the fact that my mother was able to have a sponsor, and I was able to stay up in Catholic elementary school. And so that's what kind of balanced me out. So even though in my environment, I was seeing so much. And I won't say this is a positive thing, but like most people that come to Chicago, like they always like Chicago is painted in such a bad light from the media that I beg to differ to say that I think a lot of things happen in every city. You just don't hear about it. Like I don't know why Chicago was put on this grand scheme, but by me growing up in the hood, what it taught me how to do is keep my head on a swivel. You know, I always keep my head on a swivel, and I think that's one of the things that you can take with you in everywhere. So I'm always on alert. So it don't matter what neighborhood I go in Chicago, I know what time it is. I understand like the shift. The shift is the youth. The reason why I started riding motorcycles is because the youth was driving reckless. And so it wasn't me that I was concerned about, but I was concerned about everything that was around me. So I had to adjust in the shift, right? Even you look at the podcast, I mean, this like, relationship podcast environment is oversaturated. Like there's another shift. So, you know, what I focus on is like the next wave of things so that I can kind of create it there because it's amazing how I just see people, everybody want a podcast, but just to kind of take it back on there, what we was discussing, I think that we don't have a choice. I think you can become better because you want better for yourself. Seeing how your environment was. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want to choose to be hood, but the kids, it's like a strike for them. It's like, you know, they're tough. It's to receive validation from everybody else saying, hey, because even people that grew up in Indiana and grew up in Aurora, they so happy to say, I'm from Chicago, but they really not. But they don't. But if you really think about the reason why they're saying it, it's not nothing positive. It's really to say, hey, the media paints Chicago to be so negative, and this is a place that I'm from, so don't mess with me.
So, JR, is it fair to say that, you know, they're seeking validation and attention because they're not receiving the same attention and validation in the place that they should be calling home or sanctuary? If they're seeking it elsewhere, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, wouldn't it be a fair assessment that those same attributes are not happening at home?
Well, if I can keep it personal, like just with me, like my oldest, I do got full custody of my oldest. Well, he's 19 now, but I think I had to learn. I was still a kid when I had him, and there was a lot of things that I had to learn and to kind of deal with and kind of process through because his mom wasn't there. So I think our relationship wasn't. When I look back, it could have been better. There was a lot of mistakes that I've done, but I didn't know, right? But when I look back, I could see him probably tapping in to like the culture and like I think he was trying to receive some form of validation. Maybe he was trying to get my attention. I don't know. It's something that still got to be kind of combed out. But I do think, and that's just giving you guys a real life example of how you can still be present, like somebody saying a 2-parent household, or somebody can be present and it still be some form of dysfunction, because I still think it's something there. And one of the things that people would tell me on the outside looking in, it's like, hey, but you don't think the fact that his mom wasn't there, that it may be planned into something? And I just want to read it. I just want to act like she never existed. But the reality of it is that it could be. But in order to be able to get through that, because even when I try to have conversations with him, we kind of bump heads a lot. And I have to be the bigger person and not stoop down to the pain that he might be trying to push out. And he's 19 now, so I have to go, and I had him since he was 1. So I had to go back and try to unravel all of this to see where it even came from. So and when you look at a lot of the conversations that we having today, they all stem from something. And when we look for solutions, we're trying to look for solutions as them as adults. But the real problem is that y'all got to dial it back a little bit to see how it even got to this point, because it's not with the people that they're dealing with, it's the people that they dealt with, or the people that they may not be talking to, or the people that's no longer living. So it's going to be really hard to kind of understand where things are really coming from. But to answer your question, Louise, I do think that there's a bigger issue, underlying issue in a form of validation, and not necessarily meaning from that person, but it could just be a whole list of things.
And real quick, to the outside looking in the hood, looking at the hood, it's like National Geographic. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love National Geographic sometimes, just watching the wild. That's how they're looking at the hood. Like, they're amazed by it. You know what I mean? And to your point, JR, as far as I think us as older men, you know, when we talk about how we grew up the hood, you know, having to have those survival skills, because I'm glad that I grew up where I grew up and how I grew up. I'm glad. You know, if it could have been better, that would have been great. But I'm glad because it did give me those survival skills where I can go worldwide and identify, you know, my spidey senses start going off. You know what I mean? Like, but I think what the older men need to do is make sure that we're not gratifying those things to make them feel like they missed out on something. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you see older dudes, man, they be in their 50s, yo, like, yeah, dog, we used to sell so much crack, you know, to make these younger kids feel like, oh, damn, man, maybe we need to sell crack, right? No, like, we got to make sure that we're not doing that. You know, even with women, with relationships, dog, we used to tear some ass up, right? Even with that, nah, let them figure this out themselves, not make them feel like they missed out, like they're not, like they're less than because they didn't have those same experiences. I think that's the thing, because I do see a lot of older people that kind of live in their heyday. You know what I mean? The damn superstar, the basketball team, you know, who's a complete just dust buster now. You know, he's living, man, back in my time, you know, like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, you know, I could throw a football over the mountains. Nobody wants to hear that. Stop talking about, you know, what's going on now. You know what I mean? How do you be the best version of yourself now? So I think, you know, it's a fine line. It's always balanced. You have to find that balance to let them know, give them those survival skills, but don't make it seem like they're missed out or they're less than because they didn't have those same experiences. You know, the world is different now.
Jay, when you say survival skills, what essentially are you speaking about when you say survival skills?
Well, just being able to identify danger. Like, for instance, this was like a few months back. I was going to the gas station. I wanted to put some gas. It was like 9:30 at night or whatever. And, you know, I seen it was these kids in the pump next to me, younger kids. They was like teenagers, you know, blue flags on. Then I looked to my right and I seen some kids with red flags on. You know, they start talking sign language to each other. I'm like, yep, fuck this gas. Cut that car back on. I got the hell up out of there, yo. You know what I'm saying? That's me. Like, if I didn't come from an environment where I was able to identify that, I probably would have been in there pumping gas, and then who the hell knows what happened. I didn't hang around. I saw sign language being spoken by two opposing groups, and I got the hell out of there, yo. You know what I'm saying? I ain't no superhero. I got people to take care of.
I'm so glad you said that, Jay, because then we do have the people from the hood. You have the people that have matured past it and the people who haven't. Those are two different people. And you got to recognize it. Because I came from the hood. I was born in Brooklyn, Flatbush, Crown Heights, Canarsie. That's where I grew up.
Heights.
Yeah.
Gang,
So,
gang.
so I'm from the hood. But the thing is, you're not going to see me today and say, oh, she's from the hood. Like, unless I tell you, you're not going to know where I come from. And as a grown adult, you can't use that excuse as I'm from the hood anymore. You're a grown person. Like, a lot of us are from the hood, whether you know it or not. It's about how you present yourself today and who you are today, who you show up as today. The hood is not an excuse anymore. As a child, okay, but we're grown people. I just wanted to add that in there.
I think we got to understand too that a lot of people resist it, because they don't know any better. So even though you're trying to explain to them, you're trying to explain to them how to conduct themselves to be civilized in this world, but in their world, they're okay. One of the pushbacks that I may receive or I may hear is that, like, you're trying to act like them. You're trying to make them the standard. Like, this is who we are, but you need to embrace who we are. And so it's like one of those things. It's just like, well, like, how do you even communicate to them that this way is better? Because then they're trying to say you're trying to change who I am, or you're trying to control me, or it's like one of those things. It's like they either gonna want to do it or they not.
Yeah. You can't
Open-minded.
necessarily tell them that so what I've learned about working with kids is not to say this is a better way to do things, but to say consider the outcome if you do this.
You got to do it with adults too, not just kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the adult ego is probably more fragile than the kid's ego. But yeah, it's more about the approach to it. Like if you say this is a better way to do things, or like kids internalize things. Like even when, to balancing's point earlier, in single parent households, when you have one parent talking bad to another child about their parent, please, that don't even happen in single parent household. I forgot I had a conversation yesterday with a married woman whose husband was talking to their child bad about her. You know what I mean? That's a thing where it's like they internalize it, and now they're like, okay, that's a part of who I am. Maybe I'm inadequate. You trying to tell me something, I'm doing something wrong. So now instead of receiving what should be positive feedback or a suggestion to help, it feels like an attack on their character. It makes them feel inadequate. It makes them feel like, they're essentially that they're doing something wrong, instead of, hey, I see you doing that. Maybe try it this way. Or have you ever considered doing it like that? Or what exactly are you trying to achieve by doing that? Like, questions for discovery versus giving suggestions. Sometimes I feel like you said, both with adults and kids, works better than saying, hey, this is a better way to do it than what you're doing, because then people feel like, what makes you think you could tell me that what you're doing is better than what I'm doing? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, I got you. Before anybody else speak, let me just go ahead and shift the conversation a little bit. We still talking along about the same things, but I do have another couple clips I want to play. And somebody said that the world is soft, and that's the reason why I can agree with, to a certain extent. It's about having the balance, right? Being able to receive criticism and the option of having a better way. I just told my son when I was having a conversation with him yesterday, and he's 7. I told him, look, always be a student. Always understand, and when I communicate with you, is that I want you to be able to think outside of what I'm telling you, because it may be a better way. It may be a better way that you can accomplish something and you can figure that out on your own. But always understand that you're a student. Never just take it take it in, and that's just be the truth for the rest of your life. Well, we got a couple of things. Lord Giatron says a major overlooked part of black on black crime is ninjas trying to force civilized black people down to the low life levels. And then dedicated to my children's future, gifted 5 Lapeef Network memberships. I want to thank you guys for that. Thank you for that perspective and being a member. We're going to go ahead and keep it pushing. This discussion, he was talking about crime. We're going to get into the discussion of black and black crime exists. Here we go.
Everybody's mad at Joe Biden. Should he be doing something more than he's doing now?
Joe Biden should stop sending military aid to Israel since they won't agree with the ceasefire. So everybody should be mad because here we are with so much from the opioid crisis to fentanyl to gun violence to teenage pregnancy to even hunger in this country, to send so much aid and resources to 2 different countries in so many packages, man, that's a slap in the face to America.
Well, I mean, and not to take away from the aid that's needed over there. I mean, there's the conflict is a lot to watch.
Man, the Jews are some of the most richest people in the world. How much aid do they need? They military and the things that they have is 20 times way more
advanced.
But
what I was going to say was, it's not that they don't deserve it, because I think our place in being a humanitarian to the world is important. But Congo, like, there's a whole slaughter, there's a whole world of people in Congo being killed that look like us that aren't being talked about on the news, and we're not sending aid that I know of.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago just had a horrible weekend. Philadelphia is having warlike murders, men amongst the kids.
So your thought is take care of home first. With
Yeah,
with
man,
all our
Memphis
resources.
just had a big shootout 2 weeks ago where people, man, we got that shit here up amongst the niggas, but it's the niggas though. It ain't the blacks it's the ignorant niggas, the gangster niggas, kids, the poor nigga babies, the woman, yeah. So it's easy to send aid over there and ignore aid that you can give here locally.
So do you think that's the frustration that younger people or people now in America have with Joe Biden, because they see him sending the aid there but don't see the change happening in their community here?
And what they've sent to Ukraine, they could wipe out all of our student loans with no problem. With all the aid they just sent to Ukraine alone. But you got people here still suffering. Man, you got people here who get denied food stamps because they $10 over what the requirement says. So there's no aid here for America. So how can all this aid be given and we have just as many people dying here, if not from gun violence, from fentanyl overdoses?
I'm going to stop it right there. All right, who wants to start discussing what he just got through saying? You want to go ahead, Jay?
I mean, what I say about that, man, is, I mean, the politics, man, it's so, I'm gonna try to keep it non-political. But what I say, that's absolutely true. There are a lot of things here domestically that need to be tended to. I mean, when we go out our houses, I mean, we can see it. You know, you go to the store, the prices of food. You, like he said, you have so many people. You have probably more people getting food stamps that don't need it. You know, they finagled some paperwork and finagled some numbers so that they could get food stamps, to the point where the people that really need it don't get it. You have people that are getting unemployment because they know how to hustle the system. Then you have people that actually, there's people out here that really need that unemployment to survive. And you got people, a dude sitting home playing video games all day, or a woman sitting home, you know, doing hair, making a good living, also getting unemployment on top of that. You know what I mean? Living in a surplus, you know what I'm saying? Driving around in a damn track hawk, getting food stamps. You know what I mean? So I think definitely domestically, it needs to be cleaned up. You know, taking care of home is absolutely, even down to the micro. of just our personal households. Before we go out and we pointing the finger at what everybody else be doing, we need to figure out, make sure everything is on the up and up under our own personal rules, and then we branch out. You know what I mean?
That's
Go ahead, Ru.
that just shows you, like you know how you say you put your money where your mouth is. So if we're looking at what they're doing with the money, as far as what their priority is, the priority is to leave things at status quo. Not only is it they leaving the things the way they are, they're making it worse. They're coming up with different laws to make it harder for the everyday person to continue to like try to survive, in order to kind of whatever their plan is to do, because they can, like you said, if they can easily wipe out student loan debt, that would mess up the whole thing. Why would they wipe out all the debt? So now, therefore, it just hit me the other day. It's like, wait, so you mean? And I'm like, maybe I'm a little slow, but so when we get the student loan debt, that means we owe them for to life. Like we have to work these corporate jobs to life. Got it. And also, when we get a mortgage, that means, they basically own us for that 30 years. That we have to go to work. We are put in positions in America so we have to go to work. Like we didn't, when you said earlier, there's some concepts that we don't get. Like ever since I was little, I went to the supermarket to get food. Come to find out, food grows from the ground and it's free. I know we don't like, maybe just me, but it's free. You can take one avocado and you can plant it and you can grow more, right? And
That's
it's like we don't have,
illegal here.
huh?
It's illegal to grow your own stuff in certain places in
I
America.
think you can like grow for yourself, but you can't sell it to other people.
Mhm.
But I'm like, we don't even have the knowledge anymore. Like we really can't put it together. Like we can't even figure out that processed food is not like real food. Like we can make our own with the ingredients in the, grocery store. So once we start changing our thinking and we start trying to fend for ourselves, then of course we're not going to need them as much, but they put us in position to need them. So what's popular is to get a house, to get a car, a very expensive car. The marketing is working. And so why would they use their dollars that they got from us and not use it for their own personal political gain? And a lot of times when they're donating, like when they donated to Haiti, it was like billions of dollars and only 10% got to the government or something like that. 90% went to the people in the organizations. That's when I first thought, I was like, wait a minute, something is not adding up. And then it just trickled down from there. So they're telling us what they're doing. They're hiding it in movies, but you just got to really open up your eyes. They're never going to try to bail us out. Like, just get that out your head. Never.
This is that what you said is really good. But I'm going to be very honest and truthful, and I'm going to drop a huge bombshell. The reason why they don't use whatever national reserves that we have to pay off any current debt is because we could buy and pay our own debt with our own currency. Because the aim of money is specifically to keep the corrupt but obedient government. Sorry, let me start over again. Because the aim of money is specifically to keep the corrupt and obedient governments in power who favor Western private interests, who cash in the profits while expense will be paid by the local taxpayers. A good part of that is old money, eventually ends up in private Western pockets. That's really what it is. I wasn't joking when I made the comment earlier that America is a business. This is not a country. It's never been a country. This is a business. You know what I'm saying? In this quicker we quickly understand that and buy into that, our entire mindset and our mind frame changes about how we spend our money, where we invest our money, where we elect to purchase, buy, relocate, right? Doing things by us, for us, to better us, right? That type of mindset has to be the shift. People need to get away from this idea that country, country, country. That is the marketing ploy that they've sold upon you, us, and everybody who comes here. That's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? How is it that they can give so much aid throughout the world, but yet our roads, our bridges, our schools, all these places are dilapidating. They're falling apart. You know what I'm saying? We got bridges here in the state that are practically decayed, and we have corruption scandals because all the money that has been paid to have the roads and bridges paid, the construction company takes about 50% of them, and then they stop the project, and it doesn't get going for another 4 to 5 years until there's another surplus of money that's being allocated by the government to continue. So this is a huge game. The problem is that everybody else besides us understands the rules to the game in the rules of engagement. And sort of we're sitting here thinking, well, this isn't fair. Why is this happening? And we're operating from this, good standard, good Samaritan standpoint while they're playing a different set of games by a whole different set of rules. That is the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we pay so much taxes on everything. Think about it. You're taxed on what you make. You're taxed on what you spend. You're taxed on the gas you put in your car. You're taxed on the road in which you drive. You're taxed, you know what I'm saying? You're taxed on tax on tax on tax.
Man, where's the money going?
Say again?
I say, you're like, damn, where's the money going?
Overseas.
You're wondering where the hell the money is going. You wonder that. You know what I'm saying? If one doesn't have an issue paying, it's just that where are the fruits of our labors, and where does that reflect in our schools? What does that reflect in the job market? Where does that reflect in the infrastructure? Right? It has to be reflective everywhere. This is the reason why people leave here and travel other places around the world, and they're like, damn, they got state-of-the-art, trolleys that take you from A to B, and they only cost you $2. Meanwhile, to get on Amtrak to go from here to New York is going to run me almost $300. Right? And these are the issues that people tend to see, be like, we've been sold a lie.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, so is that the reason why people are overlooking what Trump does, because they can understand what he does?
Because he's coloring within the guidelines in which he would. All of us are trained to color within the lines. Meanwhile, he has found a way to, not break the law, but color outside of the lines, operate within the gray, and still get the results in which he yields. You know what I'm saying? The reason why, he made the comment about him paying more taxes by Hillary was because, well, I use the same tax codes that all your beneficiaries who gave you money use. So if you want to change it. But you're also going to affect your constituents in your base, right? Trying to affect me, as opposed to changing it holistically across the board to be more favorable to everybody.
I did want to bring this up, and this is kind of along the lines of what you were saying, but I know in the south suburbs of Chicago, they had built the Amazon Center, and I was told that like Sam's Club and Amazon's, like, they build these places and they get a cut from it. They build it, they stay, they have a contract, maybe 7 years or so, and then they bounce and they find somewhere else, and they just keep like rinse and repeat, keep doing this intentionally. They just leave that place abandoned, and somebody else just come in and just rent it out. But it's a game that they play. Is it any truth? You guys see anything about it, or are y'all aware?
Something. What I learned was about like stadiums and stuff, like the public would pay for it, but we never get the benefit from it. It's the corporations. So when it's time to build it, we're paying for it, but when it's time to profit, those people get the profit. Like, yeah, the corporations get the profit. So I think that's something similar to what you're saying, JR.
Yeah, which takes me to and the fact that we don't. I mean, maybe somebody just haven't spoken up yet, but this is information, valuable information that suggests that we need to do more research to understand what's going on outside. So we need to start thinking outside that, like those dotted lines and those lines that Luis was talking about, because there's a lot of things that's happening and moving, and we are unaware, and we're I don't think we should just totally write off what Luis is saying. This is one of those moments where you actually sit on it for a second and see if there's any truth in what Luis is saying, and then do the research and then come back and make an opinion. We're so quick to like dismantle when somebody says something that sounds foreign to us because we were being programmed and not realizing that we were being programmed. Like I really don't want to tell my kids to go to college unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm having deeper discussions to say, like, what is it that you want to do? Because I don't want you to come in and get the short end of the stick on your way out. So let's just start listening and see if people have points before we so quick to write them off. Even when we had these relationship talks, right? I mean, some things just it is what it is. It may not apply. Every bit of it may not apply, but just take what you need, test it, and just see. I always say that just test it. Sometimes everything don't require a response. Sometimes you gotta let it marinate a little bit. You gotta. You'd be surprised what you may learn. I'm gonna play a little bit of this video, and then we're gonna go ahead and have a discussion. I apologize if I wasn't able to get to you right now, but I'll make sure I get to you after this video.
Just as many.
So, but you commented on black murder, which I don't believe black on black crime is a thing. Do you believe it's a thing?
Yeah.
Why do you believe black on black? Because some would say crime is all based on proximity.
Show me where the Jews killing each other. Show me where the Asians going to jail for murder, and they got Asian gangs. Mm-hmm. Show me where there's a big population of Asians in California. There are Asian Crips, Asian Bloods, Asian gang. Show me where a big population of Asians in jail. Mm-hmm. You can't. Show me a big population of white people killing white people. You can't. But this is a country of guns.
Well, only when they go in school and shoot up kids and say it's not terrorism.
But they classify that as a mass shooting. Mm-hmm. They classify ours as gun violence, but it's mass shooting because mass people are being shot in one instance, but they don't classify ours as mass shooting.
Well, where do you think that comes from, though? Because, again, I'm not one to say everything goes back to white people, but lack of investing in our communities. It comes back to
us because they see we don't care. If we cared if we cared the same about black people shooting black people that we did police shootings, then they would respond to black shootings the way they do police shootings. They try to give us resources and they try to find alternative solutions after a police shooting occurred. Mm-hmm. They literally put everything on hold. Come on, we got to hear from our blacks. But that's only during a police shooting. Then we act like nothing else bothers us but police shootings. Only thing that bothers black people in America is a white police officer killing a black person. Other than that, nothing bothers us because we don't cry, we don't complain, we don't march, we don't riot, and we don't tear up shit until that happens. So why would anybody care about that? They don't.
Why do you think we're not consistent in the fight for a better life or for a better community?
It starts at home. I think our problem starts watching mom and her sisters, mom and her brothers, grandmama treating this one kind of way compared to this one. Materialism. I think materialism is what got us to this point. Mm-hmm. Having a color TV, having furniture, having clothes, having shoes. I think materialism superseded everything.
All right, let's go ahead and further the discussion. He says we have no unity, man. And until we start coming together, then we'll keep producing the same outcome. I'm going to go to you, who haven't responded that wanted to kind of join the conversation. About you, Lady Mogulette?
I think I kind of touched on this earlier. I do believe that materialism is kind of destroying everything, and part of me because I kind of zoned out a little bit during the clip, but I did hear some of it. I do think materialism is destroying everything. I think folks are very superficial. I think this is the age of follow the follower. People want to look wealthy to folks that aren't even wealthy themselves, that are pretending to be wealthy, seeking outside validation from folks, going broke, not prioritizing, again, investing in things that are going to bear fruit. More dysfunction, essentially. to the first topic that we kind of spoke to. So yeah, I do think that folks could do a better job at like just me and a shout out to PDAT on Clubhouse. I can't remember his last name right now, but we were having a conversation the other day about the fact that there's no real Black community per se, because a community of people has the same values, the same interests, and the same priorities. And for whatever reason, our people can't get on one accord about that, about our values, about our interests, and about our priorities. And how do you build beyond that point? Like, folks are not even acknowledging the fact that there is Black on Black crime. He made some very poignant points. Like, how is it that when a certain race of people, do what, like, go have their psycho moment is a mass shooting, and they're humanized in the papers, but it's gun violence when it comes to ours. They're pulling back. It's just so many thoughts, but I'm gonna leave that there for now.
All right. Go ahead, Miss Taken.
I was going to say that the only, I guess, point of contention for me is him saying that there is only Black on Black crime. And he's like, well, show me Asian crime. I would say, show me where the poverty is. And I'll show you what that crime is. So if you have a group of people that are living in poverty, whatever that group is, that environment is, that's where you're going to see those people with crime. So if you have majority of Black people that are, and I'm not saying the majority are, but what I'm as point of reference, if you have a group of Black people that are living in poverty-stricken areas, yeah, you will see Black on Black crime because that's the environment that they're in, and the people in that environment are all Black. If you go to the trailer park where it might be a majority of white people, you're going to see a majority of crime in that poverty-stricken area against other white people. Right. So but I think the way it's presented in the media makes it appear that we're savages and we just go around killing each other, but not looking at the root cause of where it is coming from. Putting somebody in an environment where there's a lack of resources, poor education, no job, opportunities, things like that. You're creating an environment that creates get what you can, so that's the part that I don't like, is the way that it's presented, and we're the only group that would say Black on Black crime. And we do, I mean, the stats show everything. They're the studies show that poverty and crime kind of go hand in hand, so that's the only thing that I didn't necessarily agree with him. Is it at higher rates? I would say yes, but I also think the difference with us too is that there's also been governmental situations that were put in place that also contributed to that as well, that we don't consider. That part, I think, has been overlooked in what his statement is. But I'm done.
I think to what you said though, if I may, to what you said, I think the fact is that yes, there may be white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, whatever on whatever crime, right? It's not put in the media that way because those people are not as oppressed by this country as we are. And the media is doing its job of what's the word? Just releasing propaganda and controlling the narrative, so much so that now we are using the language of our oppressors against ourselves. They don't need to do that for us anymore. They don't need to highlight the problems in our communities anymore, because even if you operate in a space where the problems that they project and put out there onto us do not exist, we are more aware of the problems than we are of the great things that exist in your space. So much so that even if you exist in a world or have a reality where like maybe you came up and you came out the hood and you know it may have been troubling, you know what I mean? It may have been difficult. You know what I mean? You may have experienced some traumatic shit. But when you leave and you're grateful, it's almost like, I don't know, we just focus on all the things that they want us to focus on, is essentially my point. Like, it's literally like we're puppets on a string. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why we hear about black on black crime is for the same reason we hear about um city girls, the same reason we hear about uh I don't even know, like all these little I forget the name of it right now. I can't, somebody give me the word. What the quotes, all these little uh things that they put out in the media.
Like movements, trends.
Yeah, trends. It's along the word of trends. It's
Like movements, like 4B movement.
No, I'm saying, like, you know how we have like all these quotes that mean things and we kind of understand that they mean things, or all these little phrases that mean things. But essentially it's just like a media push. Like, they're marketing gurus and they're literally marketing our oppression, marketing our struggles and all those things back to us.
So I want to say something real quick before we. I think you both did a really good job in terms of highlighting both sides of the aisle. I think one thing that I want to highlight specifically is the opioid crisis and how that was handled here in America versus the crack epidemic of the late 80s and early 90s here in America. And sort of the way that they handled the crack epidemic in America was with, the over militarization of policing, incarceration, jails, harsher penalty laws, and expanded funding for drug enforcement, et cetera, nationally across the board. However, with the opioid crisis, they provided, uh, clinics, treatment centers. They treated it as a national health crisis, right? They viewed it as a national health crisis. But our crisis, they did not view it as a health crisis. They viewed it as more of a delinquency as opposed to an illness or a crisis. And sort of, for me, it was more of a way of creating a division of control by giving money and funding to a specific branch to oversee and oppress certain people, right? Versus the other branch in which it created community centers, it created outreach program, it created clinics, it gave back money in more positive ways versus funneling money in other branches in other areas. And sort of, I always tell people, follow the money. How much is being given? How much is being distributed? What branches and who's receiving it? How are they directly benefit from, right? And sort of what programs are being cut as a result of it. And sort of these things are very important to kind of look at when we're having these conversations juxtaposed, because we understand that when it comes to us, the reason why that narrative is so heightened is because they're trying to create a side of division between the two. So you.
And so when we come together, like just right now for this time, we could also come together for building our community and coming up with solutions and coming up with ideas and gathering people that follow and watch us, so we can mobilize, because it feels like with all of these things with black on black, you can't solve that if it's always propaganda. You can't solve that if that's what they're feeding you all the way from your child goes into kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, and that they're teaching them that they're inferior. So there's certain things that we it's happening, we can't control it, but what are we going to do? How are we going to strategize in order to combat these things? And like, if something is negative, you have no positive, it can't even come out to be neutral. Like, we got to do so much just to stop because the thing is, like, all this stuff happened, but it should have died out with the old people. But how is it continuing to go on and on and on? That is where the system is broken, where it's like, how does the gang member die, and then the child, of the gang member start get in the gang again? Like, how can we prevent these things from continuing on throughout the generations? And that's what we need to come together on and be the community. We don't got to be like, well, we don't got no community. Moving on, let's create one.
All right, go ahead, Balance.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with Ruth, but I think what we're finding is that will take self accountability. Like, it starts with yourself, right? You can't, people so quickly want to go out and help the community, but it's their own house that's in disarray. We're not going to be able to ever help others if we can't even start with the accountability in our own households. And it's true. It's sad that it is that way, but that's the fact. And then when you do see people doing what they're supposed to do and trying to help the community, all you do is see people attacking them, saying, oh, well, you could have did it this way, you could have did it that way, but they're not doing anything in their own household. They're not doing a thing. All they do is complain about how this person didn't do it right. And that is the problem within our community. Like, stop talking about what other people are doing. Look yourself in the mirror. Michael Jackson, I love him. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. What are you doing? Period. What are you doing? I don't want to hear anybody complaining about all the problems that Black people have. Tell me what you do on a day-to-day basis to help the culture, to help Black people, to help the community. I work with young girls. I mentor young girls. That's what I do. I'm not going to tell you what somebody else is doing wrong. I don't care what they're doing wrong. I'm too busy. I'm too busy focusing on what I need to do. It's a self-accountability. What are you doing? That's all I want to talk about going forward.
Facts. Agreed. And same.
Go ahead, Jay.
I think it's I think it's brilliant how it's done. I agree with Balance in terms of, what are you doing personally? On a macro level, you look at how divisive we've become, or how divisive they've made us. They have sliced us so thin to the point where we can't agree on anything. They've, I'm not going to say turned our women against us, but they've made our women competitors instead of partners. They've taken, in terms of, well, let me get to the Black on Black crime first. I think it's proximity, because once upon a time I did believe it was, it was Black on Black crime. I think it's what Mistaken said about, poverty. And I also think that is proximity. People who are around each other are going to eventually, have issues, and you're going to see crime in those areas. I think what you all have touched on was how it's presented. The media will always present it as something astronomical. You'll never see a community of, trailer park whites like Eminem, where they're just focusing on that specific culture and that their violence toward each other. You won't see that, and at first I noticed that. I'm like, damn, I don't ever see, the Asian gangs in Queens being focused on for their violence against each other, because it exists. Like, Queens is heavy with, the gang members, the Asian gang members. They focus on us, and they do that for a reason, because they know that we are limited in our understanding, meaning, a lot of us resort to violence because we weren't raised in an environment where we're articulate or we're able to critically think. So and we already feel oppressed. We already are told that you've been oppressed. So we've bought into what they want us to be or what they think of us. So they'll promote that stuff. We'll have protests. We'll start burning stuff down. And if you notice, even with those protests, when we outrage and we're looting and we're doing all these different things, that protest will happen in areas where we live, areas where we give our dollar. We'll burn all that stuff down. But if you notice, there's always an invisible line. You cross this line, that's where, people going to start getting shot at. People going to start getting locked up. You will not go, because this part of the neighborhood, this is what we need. These are where the white folks are. These are where the wealthy are. So you're not going to come and start destroying. If you look at every protest, that always happens. They stop you at a certain point, let you tear all your own stuff down. And then what happens is, a lot of people don't research when they burn these things down. A lot of these things are struggling businesses. You know what I'm saying? Might have been a person that acquired this just by the hair on his chin. I got this business. I'm a business owner. It's doing okay. Boom, it gets burned down. He didn't have all the things in place to, all the insurances, all this stuff in place to get that money back and rebuild. So who comes in? These people come in, and now they own this property or this land where, this mom and pop shop once was, or where we don't follow back up on that. So I think that it's purposeful that the media, focuses on what we have going on, because we have emotional reactions to it. And I think we do exactly what they want us to do, tear our own stuff up. It's National Geographic. I feel that as far as us agreeing on something, they've divided us so much. Once it was Black Lives Matter. Now it's Black Gay Lives Matter. Now it's Black Lives with ADD Matter. Now it's, they've always chopping us up into subsets where we can't even agree on the Black part. So it's going to be hard until we collectively decide, like, okay, this is what we need. Can we all agree on this being the main thing? Because I'm sure we don't even know what to ask for at this point, because we're so divided. So we can't even agree on, like they talk about, oh, we got to see one of these presidents. These presidents need to do something for us Black people. We can't even agree on that. So how are they even supposed to do anything for us if we can't even agree on what that one thing is, or what that most important thing is? So I think it's, as Balance said, you have to just, in your own personal life, you have to decide what you're doing to make the world at least a percentage better for the next generation.
I just wanted to say one thing. While you were talking, Jay, I was just thinking, instead of us always trying to have one group, why don't we have like 3 different categories, and then we just vote off of what, like, you see what I'm saying? Everybody's not the same. Everybody doesn't have the same background. So we have to kind of group ourselves together, and then the leaders cooperate. That's the only way I see it happening, because there is no one race of anything. Everybody don't get along, but you have these little clusters. And if we did even some clusters, that would be better than nothing.
All right. I did have one more topic that I wanted to discuss real quickly before we get up out of here. Let me get to these couple super chats. AP Accountability Partner Tween all this is great conversation. This is the conversation that we don't have enough of. Thank you, Lapeef Network, and the man, JR. Great show. Lord Giatron $2 says, what is white supremacy? What if I'm superior?
Yeah, shout out to that, because that would mean that Black inferiority exists. I always say that when people say white supremacy. What are you saying? You inferior? Shout out to you.
Crash Out Jack $2 says, be alert, don't mind me. Just cyber stalking. Are this one of your peoples? Oh.
Yeah.
All right, let me go ahead and play this. So this one was talking about uplifting Black people, which we kind of discussed a little bit. Should be very interesting.
This is interesting because I've told the story many times in interviews, even on my own show and interviewing Floyd. When I first came into the game wanting to unlock Hollywood, I thought, hey, there needs to be a platform that shows black culture in a way that mainstream doesn't. So I'm gonna be their favorite platform to go to. It didn't happen like that. And Floyd said, stop trying to be everybody's friend and just be a savage, because the savage always wins. I thought, well, I don't want to be a savage, because sometimes it feels uncomfortable to have to be a savage. But the minute I started saying what I thought, I mean, it almost seemed like a magnet. It sucked the industry in. Why is it that way in our culture, you think? And then do you believe, like I do, that we know how to cannibalize our own better than everybody else?
Of course we do. It's almost how we get ahead in America. We can't get ahead in America really uplifting other black people, and we're openly doing it. We can't, at every level of success that we get to, we openly as black people reach back down and pull other black people up by the masses. They'll close the doors on us.
They who? White folks or black people?
Black people. White people stopped being our enemies a long time ago.
Oh, I can feel the internet right now. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I truly believe that.
Why?
Because capitalism has superseded racism in America. So it's becoming more of nationalism, right? This is America. So that's why you see the Proud Boys, groups like that emerging, white ring conservatives. They're not talking racism, they're talking their country. We're stuck on racism.
Black folks, but people would say black people can't be racist.
We're stuck on the idea of being racist. We don't have the power to be.
The idea of the country and white people still being racist?
Yeah, so we're because we feel that we're owed something, whether there's reparations or we truly believe, and we are owed something, if we're gonna be honest, right? But there's a group that feels entitled, and that's the group that's hurting us, right? So the entitled group uses racism as an excuse, as a crutch, but they really don't know racism, because racism is really hidden in the fabrics of America and bank loans and why you can't access. So we see more prejudice than we do racism.
It's interesting. I was on a call today with a brand where I've been talking to this brand that everybody knows for 3 years about a partnership. And I said, you know what? I just want to understand you. When George Floyd died, all of you promised millions and billions of dollars investing in black-owned businesses, and you haven't done that. But you haven't told me that you don't want to do it, but you keep stringing me along. Let's just have the conversation. Do you just want us to buy your products and you don't want to invest in our businesses? Because this is what I'm feeling. And that, to me, like as you say, the new racism is embedded in like keeping us down, not really investing in black targeted, not black owned. But why do you think our culture still strives for that white validation? Because I do say in many ways, you know, you ain't gonna stop somebody wanting an endorsement deal or wanting to walk that red carpet of a mainstream platform.
Man, ain't nothing like a Harvard law degree compared to, HBCU degree in this country. There's nothing compared to living in Calabasas compared to South Central LA. So the validation is there because we validate one another based off of it. A good paying job, rather than black ownership, black entrepreneurship, or black economics. Do you have a good paying white man job? So that's always been the validation for us. That's some security that you can die with.
I'll stop it there. It's a little bit more, but I'll play it in a little bit. What do you guys think about that? I don't have to go around, just if you want to add something to it.
Yeah, I'll just wait on until he starts saying that. Yeah, he's wrong. But he got at first I was like, yeah, he's way off, but he got a good point. It's in our everyday structure, in the loans and all of that. But when you're getting denied those loans, it's not by people that are racist. So I feel like people have some kind of strand of racism in them. They just don't know what it is. They don't know what it sounds like. Actually, the new racism is downplaying that racism exists. It's kind of like when people try to talk about racism, like somebody got in my car and was like, "Oh, that's the hot spot in town." He said some kind of buzzword, but that's really, it was code for this where all the white people moving. So that's kind of how they move now. Nobody's going to be outwardly racist, but they're going to be prejudiced. They're going to stick to their own. So yeah, it's still going on. If you don't have to believe it, but you will feel the effects of it if you don't.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I'm just curious. Wasn't it Goldman Sachs that launched the 1 million Black women in new initiative, committing $10 million investment in capital and $100 million in philanthropy support to advance, racial equity and economic opportunity by investing in, Black women?
Yeah.
So I understand. I understand like the hidden and embedded part. I don't think people are just walking around. Just I've never had anybody just blatantly come up to me and just say the N word to me. But God, God protect them. But I think that there are certain corporations who are looking to invest in. I don't think that it's talked about enough. There are some that are larger, like the example that I gave with Goldman Sachs, and there are some that are much smaller. You know what I'm saying? I have in my email, because there's this brother I met on Clubhouse, Lawrence. He sent me the whole playbook on 400 business grants, for women and minority owned businesses in all types of industries, right? And sort of, I'm curious to know how many people are taking advantage of those types of things, right?
Well, the question
Like,
is how many people know about it though? That's the other
but
thing. You
but
can
but
offer
see, there,
things,
there lies
but
the issue right there, Miss Taken.
promote
There
it.
there
Yeah.
lies the issue. There lies the issue. What are people really talking about? Thank you for highlighting that. What are people really talking about? They're talking about
I
50-50. They're talking about all the bullshit that doesn't even matter, or put $1 in their pocket, rather than talking about these types of conversations and talking about, hey, I have a business idea. Where can I get grants? How can I get
I
funding? How can I
I,
fulfill my idea? But they're filling their
Hold on.
airwaves with total bullshit. That's the reality.
Or hey, let's all gather at our local townhouses and join minds and make decisions for lawmaking. Let's get on one accord about who we're going to vote for, so that when these politicians prey on the Black vote like they do every freaking season, because y'all want to sit here and act like y'all don't know that Trump being a felon don't mean that he's not going to be elected to president, because guess what? In his mind, he can relate to you Black people now. I'm a felon too. Who gives a shit who gives a shit about the fact that felons can't vote? I'm a felon. Vote for me. I'm being oppressed by America too. I'm just saying. Sorry, just had to throw that out there.
Yo, people gotta shop around their vote like car insurance, man. You
Well,
like,
could I
oh,
just
you
I
guys are
was
getting it. You guys are all
hold
getting it
on,
wrong. The
hold on,
Constitution doesn't.
Hold on. Hold
hold
on.
on.
Hold on. You can come to you next. You can let's go to Miss Taken, then we come right to you.
Okay. So what I was gonna say is, piggybacking off of what Lewis was saying, is saying that we're not having those conversations about those grants, right? We're not having, but I see that there's a general thread that occurs when there are opportunities for us as a group of people to maybe get us up above where we need to be, that there's a lack of information about those opportunities and programs pushed out that is different from all of the other negative stuff. So I totally agree with you. School system, same thing. I work in a school system. I see that there are so many different kind of scholarships that are available that we could benefit from. So when everybody's talking about, oh, college costs too much, you can't go to college, go to this school instead of getting a college degree, because you're going to come out with a whole bunch of loans. And the truth of the matter is that the scholarships that are available that would cover the cost of college at 100%, if you get enough of those scholarships, those things are not pushed out even in the school system. Even though you have your what do you call it, your academic counselor, things like that. Even they have a lack of knowledge of some of the things that are available. And so I think that's part of the issue. I think it may be by design, because when I was working in more affluent schools, that information was readily available. So even like with the business programs and loans and whatever projects they have available, you don't see those things being pushed out. They're definitely not going to be pushed out in a hood where those people will, the people in
But
that
why
environment
not? But
will
why
need, and
not?
that's my point.
I can't
That's
accept. I
exactly my
cannot
point.
accept that. That is
That's
a hard
exactly
pill
my
to swallow.
point.
That's a hard pill to
Why
swallow.
isn't it?
You
Why
know,
isn't it? Like I said, even for me
because
growing
people
up,
are
here's
much
an
more
example.
infatuated.
Hold on, here's an example. So in education, because typically every child in America is supposed to go to school at least by the time they hit the age of 6, right? So looking at the education system in certain environments versus others, a lot of this, like poverty mindset or opportunity, things like that, can be wiped out just in the school system alone if things were put in place the correct way. I ended up participating in a program called Pearls. It was a program for early and rapid learners. And it was kind of like maybe a magnet school, but it was in what they did. It was like a social experiment. They took kids from all over the area that I lived in. So you had some that had money, and then some that lived like where I was. And the idea was you put all of these kids in the same environment, give them the same opportunity, and they all could rise to the occasion and do well. Every person that I know that was in my circle in that program, we started from the 3rd grade all the way up through the 8th grade. They have either they're entrepreneurs, they are lawyers, they are bank owners. Like, they did very, very well. And these were kids who also came from single parent households, things like that. So the social experiment worked. And even now they're in, I think, like maybe one of the 28 schools in the United States. And this is in an area where there are that are in projects and stuff like that. So the opportunity to do better is there. And that's why I say I think it's intentional, because if we could send money all overseas for these wars, how come we can't invest that same amount of money in these programs and get the correct people in the education system? It's intentional by design.
I don't disagree with you. I genuinely, I'm with you. I don't disagree with you. The only part is that in there where there are areas where they don't offer these programs or they don't have these incentives, because I personally feel like all these schools should have the right resources to make sure that they give the right tools to these young people to ensure that they have the best successful outlook on life. I don't disagree with you. But I also feel that parents need to be a little bit more self-aware about what limitations are being presented in their child's school system and where can they intervene and find other outlets to make sure that their kids are getting the tools and also the resources and access to such programs, right? I think it's a twofold. I think that the system is fucked up, and I think another part is that there's not enough oversight or involvement directly on ensuring that these kids get the right exposure.
Um, yeah. How you guys doing today?
How about yourself?
Good. I'm glad that you guys are talking about business because I like that. Let me put it this way. The other lady was saying something about Trump and felony and being a felon, or black people. He's going to approach black men now and say, hey, you guys are felon now. You can vote for a felon because I'm a felon. Let me put it this way. A felon can contest for election, but state can prevent a felon from voting. He cannot vote in New York because he's a felon, but he can vote in other states. But he can be on the ballot in New York. So two different things. That's U.S. Constitution. It does not disqualify him from being voted for. I'm not gonna vote for Trump because number one, I like his system of government, but I just don't like his personality. So I'm not gonna vote for Trump. And I'm not going to vote for Biden either. But let me put it this way. I had a guy one time, we were talking. He's a client of mine. So we're discussing about a neighborhood in Dallas called Highland Park. You guys do have it in Chicago as well. So he said that Highland Park is a very good neighborhood. I said, yeah. I told him that that's correct. I can't doubt that because the cheapest house in Highland Park is about $2 million. But then during the conversation, there is something he said that I never forgot. He said that paying that $2 million in Highland Park worth it. I'm like, but you can get it. You can get the same house across the highway for $1 million. He said, but Highland Park comes with the opportunity. You are paying $2 million for a house, but the fact that you live in Highland Park, your children will never see poverty. You will never see poverty because of the connection that comes with that neighborhood, with the zip code. So the thing in our community as Black people, not when I talk about Black people, I'm not talking about the US, I'm talking about global, is that we have not mastered business yet. And one of the reasons why we haven't mastered business is because the white man wrote the rule of modern business and we play by that rule. Even though we have rules of modern business, which actually gave us zero poverty before the white man showed up. Africans had no poor people. They had ethnic issues, but there was no poor family. But when the West came, they created poverty because they moved people from the rural area to the city. Migration to the city creates poverty. But what I'm trying to say in essence is this. Every Black person in America can be wealthy, but few can create the general wealth. And the reason why that few are not creating the general wealth is because the few live in either the wrong neighborhood, they don't have the right association, and the ones that are supposed to be coming up to also get into that club are not listening to the ones also create the fraternity to do that job. Somebody was saying earlier about that they have some program for Black women. And I would tell you, as somebody that has been in this country for 20 years, one of the reasons why Black people are still very, very poor is that the programs in America are not created for Black men. They are mostly created for Black women because of what? A Black woman can never compete in the same level with a white man. Americans don't create wealth for white Americans don't create wealth for white women. They create wealth for white men, create opportunity for Black women, but not giving the Black man the chance to come up there to compete with the white man. Because they know in a competition between the white man and the Black man will beat him hands down. The Black man will neutralize the white man. So they don't want it because they've tried it before and they know that. So what I'm going to say in essence is this. As a YouTube is a great opportunity for Black people to start creating wealth, but it has to gravitate towards the Black man, not towards the Black woman. But because I understand that it's a very tough issue because a lot of Black women in this country never grew up under the leadership of a Black man. So it is going to be very difficult to really push that power. But I got to tell you, that's the only way Black community can make it in this country. But another thing again, I will say one thing before I seize my guns or stop shooting, is this. Understand that the white America, most of the wealth in this country is not created in this country. It was taken from other countries and brought here to be created. I keep saying this to Black Americans, you have to travel out of this country a lot. You got to go overseas. You got to start business overseas. You can go to China. You can buy goods in China, import into the America. The same white America that is telling you that Chinese ain't shit are the ones going to China to get things fabricated in China and brought into this country to sell. So you have to start getting out of your hood, getting out of your country clubs, getting out of your city life, getting out of your high towers and start traveling, start going outside, start seeking opportunities, start going to places, build and bring. Go ahead, guys.
And they said that I was crazy 2 weeks ago for telling people to get a second passport.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Actually, I agree with him on the point of why I am all for the Black woman, right? But everything, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. For all of the programs to be centered around Black women, and you just have to, if you think a little bit more critically and push your ego to the side. I read somewhere that like if black women we can do anything, right? But if the funding was going to the Black men, it would also go to the Black men and women, because if he'll get married, right? And then we will do something, but after a while, if you pay attention, we get a little tired, we got a family to raise. And I think the whole point of what I was reading was like a man can dedicate his whole life to being the CEO. He can neglect his whole family, and that's the way to get to the top. But we always have to struggle with being, raising our family and running that business. So you'll be a bad mom, but a great CEO. So it would be better for our men if we can come up with money, or we don't always have to go by what other people have for us. We can create our own stuff. So I hear what you're saying about joining the right group and the right circle and all that, but I'm not chasing no clout of other people. I want us to create our own. Like if we're talking about ownership, let's create our own clubs, create our own networks, create our own funding, fund our own politicians. That will make us stronger versus always trying to be accepted and then we're under the thumb of somebody else. So that's where I would say we have to invest a lot in the Black man, our Black sons, if not anything. If it's too much for us to give it to the Black man, then give it to your son, right? And invest in him and tell him he could be a CEO, and invest in his business, right? And see what they can do.
All right, I'm gonna finish this last part of the video, and then we'll have a dialogue and we get up out of here. All right, this last part of the video. Here we go.
Your good paying job, the benefits that good paying job offers you compared to you starting your own business and passing that down as a family tradition or an inheritance, right? Mm-hmm. So what else do we have to strive for outside of white validation? Black excellence still seeks white validation.
As you say that, I see Jay-Z standing on the Grammys stage.
Puffy checking the people at the Grammys and missing the BET Awards. Rather than making our BET Awards the Grammys or making our Black Hollywood like the Oscars, we want to fight with them about what's been.
And making their show better for us.
But their show isn't strictly for us.
Right.
Right? So it's no difference than us once having the Negro League, and the Negro League was doing so good, it brought them to us.
But who do we blame for the apathy right now with Black excellence? Is it Black folks? Is it white folks? Is it social media?
You don't blame nobody. You look in the mirror and blame you.
If you're not contributing to
If you're not contributing. So it's kind of like, that's what brought me to the community, right? I'm traveling around the country, and I was partnering with a national lobbyist group out of Washington, D.C. that was called the Campaign Fair Sentencing of Youth. So I became a member of a national youth advocacy program that was called ICANN, Incarcerated Children's Advocacy Network. And so I learned about fundraising. I learned about all these different things. And so throughout traveling and speaking in all these different places and working on laws and legislation, you would hear people say, well, you become the change that you want to see in your community. That was the greatest challenge that I had ever heard. Mm-hmm. You go become the change that you want to see in the community. So in order to do that, I had to change my belief system.
And what was your belief system at the time?
I believed the culture. Mm-hmm. I believe real niggas went and done time and suffered in agony, and they died with pride, only to not know that's not the truth. Mm-hmm. I believe that 4 friends riding in the car, one friend should take the charge for all the friends if he could.
All right. We go ahead and continue the convo. That was the last part of the video. Go ahead, lady. I know you was trying to say something.
I honestly don't remember what I was going to say. If it comes back to me, I'll jump in.
Copy that. Everybody's snacking. I see you, Miss Take. Go ahead, Jay.
I think what he said about making awards, that's one thing. Black excellence seeking white validation. I think in some instances we've definitely seen that with Kanye. The example he gave in terms of Jay-Z and Diddy at the time. You're complaining to people that don't care. They're not worried about that. Instead of standing on that stage and telling them what they're not doing for you, you guys are in positions where you can create the gold standard. And that's why when we think of award shows, we look down on the BET Awards. And I think part of that reason is because people haven't poured into that. You know what I mean? And that's throughout the community. That falls from that level of success to even on a local level. I can't tell you how many times, I look down my Facebook feed and you'll have people starting their own businesses and you see the amount of criticism that a Black person gets when you know that the circumstances that it took for them to even put this together were dire. You know that they're starting out and it's not going to be, it's not the final product, but they get so much criticism from that it kind of demoralizes them and everybody just piles on. So I think definitely when you see a struggling Black business or I think we should pour into them more. You know what I mean? Like, what do you need? What can I do? How can I help? I think we need to do a lot more of that instead of saying, oh, well, that's why I don't deal with Black businesses. I don't care if the business is Black or white. I'm going to do somebody that's going to get the job done. I think to an extent, that's how we feel, but we need to take in consideration what it took to even get that business off the ground. And I think we need to do more to pour into those and empower them, instead of going to a white business and say, why don't you serve us? Or why don't you help the community? That's not what they're there for. That's not their objective.
If I got to be a little honest too, and this is something that I often run across, is that typically there's a certain crowd of Black folks, right? And when they come and they find out about a new establishment, or maybe it might have been a predominantly white establishment, and when the Black folks come in, it's that they ruin it. Like, they ruin the experience. They come in, they're kind of reckless, and so that's the reason why you see so many of these rules as far as no gym shoes, no ball caps, and even when you walk in certain establishments, they still are profiling. But depending on how you dress it up, is going to determine if you're able to come in. Like, sometimes when Black folks discover something new, they be like, well, I'm not going to tell such and such because I don't want them to come in there, and I don't want a whole bunch of Black folks to start coming in here, and then it's ruined. So I think a lot has to fall. It's easy said than done when it comes to, say, us showing support, because how are we showing support? Like, when we are bringing a certain type of culture in it, and it's not necessarily coming from the good part of the culture, but it's negative. I was on I ain't gonna lie, I felt real embarrassed. I was on a plane a couple weeks ago, and this big ass dude, right? I'm not trying to body shame, but he's big as hell, and had his pants hanging off his ass. He was smelling like he just packaged up. He might have had it on. My daddy had it on him to be able to make it through a TSA, but he still smelled like he just came from it. And it wasn't a full flight, and it was a middle seat right inside of me. I'm like, damn, I hope this dude do not sit his ass right here. I'm like, damn, I should have just sat closer to the front, because he had walked to the back, and then they had walked him back up to the front. I could see the the flight attendants. They just like, I know they wanted to say this end, and everybody just looking like, damn. There's a lot of other things I could say, but I don't want to come off wrong. But I'm just like, man. But
He has shit in his ass, right? That's what you're trying to say.
I mean, he was dressed. I mean, he had the backpack. He had a designer backpack, pants hanging down. He had a big chain. Smelling like he just got through packaging up. It was just unnecessary. So I said it all to say is that's the type of image that's coming in, and I don't know his behavior. He could be a good guy. I am looking at what I typically will see that's associated with it. But when he's coming in, now they have to manage the business differently. Now they have to start turning people around. And even when you think about Kitchen and Cocktails, right? And I know he blew up off that viral moment of the women that came in twerking, but when you walk into his establishment in Chicago versus Dallas, it's completely different. When you go into Chicago, they're patting people down before you come into the restaurant. In Dallas, you don't have that, but it is a little bit more stricter when it comes to attire that comes in. But that's what people are afraid of when it comes to the support. And sometimes the Black owners would rather keep their own people out because of the type of negative attention that they're going to bring with that.
I actually agree with you. It's sad, but true. Is that at times I think part of it is because we always feel that we are representing our entire race as individuals, right? Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of one of us being looked at as an individual, right? Where other groups have that opportunity. So if somebody else from a different group cuts up, as a collective, it's just that one crazy guy, right? Because they don't have the same kind of negative stereotypes that surround their culture, right? So like for instance, if an Asian guy cuts up, everybody's like, oh, it's just that one individual, because as a collective they're not seen as a bad group. Whereas I think for African Americans, with us, even though we know for a fact it's not majority of us that are, acting a certain way, but we're going to be judged by that measure, which is unfortunate. One of the things that I wanted to say too, in regards to like programs and stuff that may be available, what happens when the programs go well, especially if it's targeted for us at times, that those programs are then taken over. And what I mean by that is well, they still have the program called Inroads. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that program, but Inroads was a program that was targeted for African American students, like before they went to college, to end up like if they pursued certain type of careers that may be in the like business or something like that, that they actually get trained, right? So they would, if they're going to go into corporate America, so they would teach them like different types of social skills, partner them with a specific company in the field that they actually wanted to, work in. Like if you wanted to be a CPA, things like that. And they would partner those students with companies, and they would learn, like, even just going to a restaurant, how do you order? The forks and plates and spoons, how all of that is. You don't, you wait for the CEO, whoever, to see what they order first, to see if you can drink while you're, eating, like just a whole bunch of stuff that you would not know growing up in an underprivileged situation. That program did very well. But then what happened is, instead of it now targeting just African Americans, because it was doing so well, they expanded to other minority groups. But typically, I think it was mostly like black and brown to begin with. And then what happens is, then you have other minority groups that may already have been doing well, and they see this as an opportunity and they take advantage of it. And then it kind of pushes out the initial targeted group that they were trying to help to begin with. Another program that is available that I know a lot of schools don't invest in, speaking about entrepreneurship, that Ikene was talking about, that it was a program that was called NIFTY, the National Federations of Teaching Entrepreneurship. And it was actually started by a guy who actually taught in the South Bronx. I think his name was Steve Mariotti. Yeah, Steve Mariotti. And he literally, being in the South Bronx, he started that program because he was an entrepreneur and he used it as a way to improve like the academic performance because for the at-risk youth, because he felt like his idea was based on the fact that they can use their street smarts in order to develop their own businesses. Because when you think about it, when you're selling drugs, I mean, that's a business. And so what he did is he capitalized on that negative aspect of what was going on in that environment to turn it into something positive, and created a whole entrepreneurship program for students. And so if we can get programs like that in our schools, that would also be another avenue to kind of deter some of the stuff that occurs in our communities, and promote entrepreneurship among us, because we are trained to work for other people as opposed to working for ourselves. But if you don't have the knowledge and how to do that, it's easier to work for somebody else because that conditioning is already happening.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Sager. I do want to highlight, Ram Reese, I guess this is what we were discussing, but he did make a couple comments. He said, what Black businesses are successful that keep Black people out? He also said, sound like you seek the white fraternal hand. Who are they making you look bad to? Why do you care how other groups perceive you? Are they your masters? This infers that you believe other groups will continuously be above you, so you have to tiptoe the line accordingly. This is why younger people tuned out Eric's weakness, and instead of establishing power, the focus is on how others perceive you.
And that's where the shit changed for Kanye. Like, back in 2013, 14, he was trying to explain stuff to us, which, we looked at as rich nigga problems, but he was trying to break into the fashion world, as a Black artist. Already, if you start out, and his profession was a rapper, and producer, there's already a certain stigma toward you, just like with Terrence Howard, as far as him, speaking on science and the periodic table and, space itself. Like, they're looking at him like, who the hell is this actor who was in goddamn Hustle and Flow trying to tell us who've been in here for years, So when Kanye's trying to break into the fashion world, the people who were the head of the fashion world were people that he looked to, that he wanted to validate him. And most of those were like Asian and white, males and females. So when they say he was seeking like white validation, at a point, those were the only people he had to look at. But once he got in there and then he realized that they were putting up all these barriers, he stopped seeking it. He went, he kind of just went crazy, and was like, yo, F all these people. These are the people that we're giving all of our money to. They don't give a damn about us.
So would you say just around the world period that there's always going to be some form of hierarchy?
I think what the message that they were saying is we shouldn't care how we look to them. It's easier said than done, especially when you've been programmed for so long. I feel the same way you feel, JR. If I'm in a place and then somebody comes in, pants hanging off their ass, smelling like weed, internally, based on how I was programmed, that's how I feel. You know, not to say that it's
Well, I'm gonna
right.
tell you, I just don't like the way it smell. I mean, like the after effect of it. You know, it just I just can't. It just stink to me.
Thank
So,
you for saying that. We needed to hear a black man say that.
I mean, it's a different smell when you're actually engaging in it, but afterwards, it just reminds me. It put me in that mind state of like Black and Miles. Like whenever you put a Black and Mild out, if you did smoke it and then it just sits, it's like that shit stank. It is what it is. I just don't want to smell it. It starts to give me a headache. It
Thank you.
yeah.
I feel the same way. You know, pants hanging off the ass. You know,
I mean, he just looks sloppy. He just. I mean, he kind of looked like. So I don't want to say nothing, man, 'cause it just might just go might go the wrong way.
but there's
What?
probably other white people looking.
He was definitely overlapping into the other seats, and I just wanted to enjoy a comfortable ride. I didn't feel like dealing with it today. I was already on the end, which was gonna push me further on the end, and I'm gonna keep getting bumped because now I can't lean over to here because he there. And on top of that, he smelled like this, and he came on last. I'm just like, bro. I'm like, you got to be here early. You got to be on, and so you can pick what seat you want to pick. So we don't have to suffer. When you come on there and it's down to the last seats, we all looking like, damn, bro.
JR said, pick the struggle. You can't be fat and stink. What's wrong with you?
Okay, guys, let me say something real quick so that I will attend to my little girl. Let me put it this way. Some people are saying that something about perception. Let me be honest with you guys, man. I don't know how I'm going to tell black people, both in Nigeria and in the US, about this. Image is everything. Image is everything. Character matters a lot. If you want to add hood, ghetto, slum, anything, whatever you call it in your country, act it and stay where you are. Act it in your hood. But when you have to come to the general public, respect yourself. Respect yourself. Image matters. You can't be an asshole in your house and an asshole in the street. I'm sick and tired of when grown people in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s still want to act like little childish nonsense. It's stupid. The way you dress, the way you talk in the public, the way you speak proper, act proper, be mannered. There is a reason why they call it mannered. It's not for fun, it's not for aesthetics, it's for character and attitude. Yes, we have to create our own award. Validation from white people is not good, it's not the ultimate, but you still have to do things properly. The reason why a lot of people don't watch BET Award is because it's trashy. The same thing with SS Magazine. You go to SS Magazine, SS Festival. They went to FS Festival last year. They turned into a sex and booty clapping and twerkers or whatever they call it festival. Non-classic. You have to act like a decent human being. That's what it is. I don't know why we should be begging people to be decent, to act right. It doesn't make any sense, any sense at all. And the other thing is this: black people don't do selective association. You have to associate with the right person. You can't associate with every black person on it. You pick and choose who you associate with. I don't like every black person on earth, and I don't want to associate with every black person. I choose my friends. My friends don't choose me. That's what I do. I choose who I associate with. You, the rest of you, go to hell. If you don't want to learn how to be a mannered human being, go to hell. I don't give a fuck. Then dress accordingly, because what you got to understand is that your outward appearance matters a great deal. I dress well. I'm a fashion designer. I'm a businessman. I'm a mechanical and aerospace engineer. But as an engineer, I don't come out there with unbrushed teeth. A lot of engineers smell like shit. I don't do that because guess what? I want to look good. I want to smell good. You see what I'm saying? Then another thing is this. It's a big problem when people don't want to learn. Learn. Knowledge is power. I don't go to church, but this is what the Bible teaches you. wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. You have to have those three things if you want to succeed in life. Wisdom is for you to be able to discern. Knowledge is something you acquired. It's not given. You must acquire knowledge if you want to be able to discern. Then understanding is something you retain when information is passed down to you. You retain whatever you retain shows your capability to understand. I'm sick and tired of how black people want everything to be handed to their goddamn asses or goddamn hands. You have to go there and get it. Nobody's going to give it to you. White people didn't get it. They have to rob countries. And they're still robbing countries up to today. They're the greatest criminals on earth. And they're robbing the whole world. They make two people fight each other so that they can supply them weapon. They don't give a damn about your life. If they can do this shit to Palestinians and the Middle East and trying to get China and the Philippines and Taiwan to fight each other and try to take over Japan indirectly, you think they give a fuck about Africa? They don't give a fuck about you. And you shouldn't give a fuck about them. They all they know is about enterprise. So you treat people how they treat you. They know enterprise, you deal with them in an entrepreneurial manner. That's it.
So, there we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that if I could, because I agree with what he said. The lack of dignity. I don't know why we don't prioritize showing up as dignified people. Like I said earlier, the community is dead because no one's prioritizing. We don't have the same values. We don't have the same upbringing. Our kids, a lot of these kids are being raised by screens. Most of these babies can't read no more and they still getting passed along. So we got illiterate. I remember I'm a first generation American. I grew up in Jamaica with my grandmother. When my grandmother died, she still didn't know how to read. I remember thinking, being so grateful to be able to read to my grandmother. That was like one of our favorite pastimes. I used to think that was something that was for, immigrants. No, that was the lack of literacy, to the point where my mom and I started building a school on our land in Jamaica to fight that problem there. To now know that this is not a third world country. This is not a poor country, but our babies are not reading anymore. Our babies are not being taught to have manners, to address your elders as miss, sir, madam. You know what I mean? Like that, I get having fun, but nothing's sacred no more. No one wants to keep things off the screen. It's not even so much about how you look to white people. Where's the self-respect? I remember growing up in Brooklyn too. Me and my auntie them, we used to live on 34th Avenue D back when basement parties were the thing. The only time us young girls could wind up ourselves and have fun with our family was in the house with our cousins, our girl cousins, and our girl aunties, because we're Caribbean. So, we wine, we dance, whatever. But we knew better than to take it outside and to be inappropriate in front of no man. We knew better than to be, in the midst of adult conversations, acting like we were grown. We knew better than to sit on no man's lap, regardless of if he was a older cousin or a family member. There were just certain things that, and I understand there's a culture thing too. You know what I mean? So we're not gonna dig into all of that. But there were just certain things. Kids were raised. We were reared. We need to get back to rearing our babies. Some of these adults, it's lost for it. It's lost. It's over for them. I know I went to etiquette training. I have that part of my curriculum in my performing arts program. I do think a lot more kids need to get into etiquette training. And I do think that a lot more young boys need to, their parents need to enroll them in programs where they can get some mentoring and stuff from older guys and older men within the community. So that's my share to add on to what Akeem said.
Ruthie, raise your finger.
Yeah, I would say that we just going to have to leave some people behind. A lot of us do agree on a lot of things. So There's a saying that I'd rather run with 100 people than carry one on my back. We got to stop waiting for the people that don't want to change, that's closed-minded, and the people that's open-minded start doing things, getting out there, doing. You can do just like you can do schools in Jamaica. Schools can happen here. We can do our own thing, and nobody can stop us if it's a bunch of us. But as soon as we got one leader, all of a sudden they disappear. So if all of us get active, we could be unstoppable. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. Oh, great points, man. I know we bring this to a close. I mean, one of the it's like everybody always have an opinion about everything, right? And one of the things you can do is when you bring your opinion, making sure you bring in a solution or something that you're doing to contribute to be able to help. You know, the guy Ren was saying that we're stooping down and we got to answer to somebody. Somebody's our master. It's really understanding how the world works, right? Like there's different frequencies. There's how the world is working, and sometimes you got to sit back and study it to figure out how can you create your own. One of the things I stumbled across was this football player, and you guys may see some of the videos, but he flies him and his wife and children around. And my understanding is that you're able to take flight, I guess, whenever you want to. So I started researching how to become a pilot to be able to fly a small plane so that you don't really have to be controlled by all the experiences you have to go through as far as with TSA, the airport, and so forth. I mean, this is me creating a solution for me to be able to, I guess, travel the world or being able to at least get somewhere quicker without having to go through the regular process. But it requires research. A lot of us don't want to research how to better ourselves. We always got a comment, an opinion about it, but what are you going to do to help contribute to it? I have a lot of people try to give me a suggestion or say, well, you're not doing this. This is the reason why this has happened. Okay, well, then what's your solution for it? Because obviously I haven't figured it out yet. So how are you going to assist me instead of trying to tear me down by giving you advice? So I think if we do a better job at bringing some type of support, it ain't got to be the answer, but at least something that's steering us in the right direction, then I think that we'll be better people. All right, we got a few super chats, and then we'll go ahead and cut up out of here. Lord Giatron, $2 says, America, mine. This is my stomping ground, home. Lord Giatron, $2 says, shout out to the angry man, the chaotic truth. Giatron again says, it's been all over the earth. Nowhere better than USA. Victor, $2 says, the Lapeef family, what's up, guys? Keeping it classy. I want to thank everybody that's contributed to the platform. Y'all make sure y'all click that link that's pinned to the top of the chat. Put in the promo code FATHER. That is going to get you 50% off. It's the perfect Father's Day gift. And also, we do have the Teach Hanley. Click that link in the description. You get 40% off with a free gift. And you also get 20% off for life if you become a member. Make sure you guys give everybody a follow if they do have their IG socials up there, and if they got YouTube channels, make sure we support each other the way you support here. I want to thank everybody on the panel for an excellent dialogue today and for sticking around. I know it's a little bit longer than usual, but it was a much needed conversation. If you're watching the replay, hit the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The people that's in the chat, y'all did an awesome job. Good way to keep it classy and professional, and you guys added to the conversation as well, even the people that we didn't agree with. That's how we able to get to solutions, by just having a conversation. If you wasn't watching, lastly, if you wasn't chatting, thank you as well. I know you might probably hit the like button and just didn't comment. We appreciate you too. Until next time, we out, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, JR.
Have a great week, guys.
You too.
Have a good one, guys.